Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to BWTM Sports Gaming. Right, we're going to jump straight into this one. Thank you, YouTube. It's always nice to know that I'm live on YouTube. Check it on my phone as well. So, as I said, thank you for joining me on BWTM Sports. I'm going to talk about Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook. I can't believe, I cannot believe in 2020, we'll talk about Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook. How desperate are we as boxing fans? I mean, I said this to you all a long time ago when I saw Kell Brook in America begging for a fight, which he was, begging for a fight with Terence Crawford. I said, this fight's going to get made. This fight will get made. I wish I should pull the video up. This fight will get made, right? And what I notice happens a lot in boxing to sell a fight. First of all, they'll throw it out on Twitter. And the Twitter fans start to talk about it, speculate. This is a fight that, for me, is bang on the sort of fight that Crawford's going to take at this stage of his career. What do you mean at this stage of his career? Well, he's not going to move over to PBC. And by the way, I just want to add that Sean Porter is the #1 contender for his title. I guarantee that fight won't get made. Not now. Not when Kell Brook's there. When I spoke about Amir Khan fighting Terence Crawford and seeing that fight happening, and he said, oh, no. And then people came out and said, like they always do about Amir Khan, well, he's got speed. Anytime we talk about Amir Khan, they don't talk about his chin, don't talk about his poor boxing IQ, poor footwork. They never mention that. People in boxing generally talk about Amir Khan and his speed. Okay? And that's fine, because he has got fast hands. And he has won some fights, and he has been a world champion. You can't dispute that. But against the very best, his chin, his ability to trade when he shouldn't be trading, he sticks his chin in positions where he shouldn't be, and he doesn't take the greatest punch in the world. All of these things against big punches hasn't boded him well, and we've seen by knockouts by Prescott, by Danny Garcia, him moving up to try and fight Canelo, and people said, oh yeah, well, you knocked people out at middleweight. I'm like, okay, that's what he tells you about in sparring. So you look at these situations and he gets flattened by Canelo, but yeah, those same people bring back Khan again and tell you he's still got that speed. I'm like, okay, well, Crawford's got speed, he's got power, he's got boxing ability, he's got good footwork, he's a switch hitter, he's got boxing IQ. Like, okay, so Khan's got speed. And, Khan is pretty washed now. But boxing fans still want to see the fight. So what did they expect to see when I said within probably the first round, Crawford would drop Khan? And he did. What did you expect? Good morning, Letvinda. Good morning, Ruben. What did you expect? What do you expect? So now we've got Brook. So we've seen the signs already. But what will they sell to us about Brook? I'll tell you what they'll sell to us about Brook. He's fought at middleweight. He fought Gennady Golovkin at middleweight. Wait for it. He's big for the weight. He's a big welterweight. You remember that epic fight he had with Errol Spence? Yeah, I remember the epic fight. Well, where he got damaged and dropped. Yeah, but he was leading in that fight. That's what the boxing fans across Twitter will tell you, and across Facebook, and some across YouTube. He was winning that fight against Errol Spence. Yes, he was. And probably, had they not taken that Golovkin fight, we may have been seeing a different fight there, because we would have had an unbeaten Spence and an unbeaten Brook fighting against one another, and that would have been very interesting. But no, you know what? When I was telling people, Brook should vacate the IBF title, move up, and go and fight Gerald Heard at the time, people thought I was crazy. He should have gone and fought Heard. Heard was, a little known, wasn't known at the time, that much, Gerald Heard. I thought he should have moved up and fought Heard. I mean, his boxing skills, as far as I'm concerned, are better than Heard. Heard fights with his face. And Brook is strong enough, I would have thought, to have done well against Heard. But you know what? They went and took the Golovkin fight. But guess what? I've got something very special for you all to watch today. Something for you all, because people say that I'm a diss, I'm a hater, I'm I hate a certain promoter, and I do this and I do that. But today you're going to hear for yourself. Why is Kell Brook even bothering to fight? Why is he even fighting Crawford? If he's got so many houses and he's in such a great place, why does he have to put his health in danger against Crawford? I mean, it's clear if you look at him fight, for whatever reason, down the right-hand side, he's getting caught with right hands more often. And of course, if he had his orbital bone broken and the eye socket went, then there's always a question mark about whether he can actually see out that eye as well as he probably could do before the Brook and Golovkin fight. Wear and tear, moving up and down the weight, it's not good. And I don't think Kell Brook's lived the greatest of life outside the ring if you look at the way he blows up outside the ring. So I don't know what's going on. Do you remember how Kell Brook 1 minute was a pay-per-view star? Do you remember? And everyone was thinking that he was the next best thing as a welterweight. And he was if you look at him after he fought Sean Porter, what exactly did he do with his career? He was, 32 or 33 and 0 unbeaten. He'd just beaten Sean Porter in a fight. Again, I said I didn't think he won. But what did you do with him? What did you do with him? Well, I have something to show you all. And the point is this. This isn't, he's exposed him. This is more of a situation of learning. What can we learn from the past? I did these Tyson Fury videos years ago. And it's interesting that those Tyson Fury videos I did back then are still relevant today. So what I'm going to show you something today is something I did before, but will tell us a few things about fighters' contracts. It will tell us about this Kell Brook situation with Golovkin, because it's the same people behind him that were promoting him to fight Golovkin, that are the same people to fight Crawford. We'll get a little bit more. We'll get a little bit more from the man himself. So without further ado, we're going to do a film study here. Again, this is not to expose. This is more from a situation where we can learn. And not only what we can learn from, a situation where what I'm doing here, a film study, is that we can better educate ourselves about what is actually going on in the sport of boxing. Nobody can say afterwards, I said it, I made it up. I fabricated this story. No, this stuff is pretty much what it is. Before I do it though, good morning, Ruben. I think he's probably washed now. He's washed. Bud dealing with Brook will be a good promo for Bud Spence. No, it wouldn't be. How would it be a good promo? How would it be a good promo? It's not a good promo. Good morning, Lavinda. Good to see you, my friend. Brook will be in a good place. Is in a good space physically. Training well, making 147. No problem. Yep, that's what they'll be telling you. Brook looks 200 pounds in between fights. Porky thinks Kell's dad has wrecked his career. Well, okay, I'll tell you what. Maybe Porky may or may not have seen this. And by the way, shout out to Porky's Corner for leaving that comment. I do appreciate it, by the way. I do appreciate it. Much love. Okay, let's roll the tape. We're going back in time just a little bit. And a lot of this stuff is still relevant today. But I'm going back to this particular video. And again, it's for us to learn. We also will have a better idea of who probably will be leaving the stable. Let's run the tape, shall we? Can we run the tape? And let's go from here. And let's run the tape.
Making his debut on Baylor TV boxing. Finally, Cheeky Chappy.
Bit nervous.
Me too.
Yeah.
Shaking hands. Eddie Hearn.
Yes.
Eddie, do you know how many people come up to me on the street and say to me, "You need to interview Eddie Hearn. You need to interview Eddie Hearn. Why don't you interview him?"
Maybe I'll give all the lines, you know, give the hype, give the bullshit, give the smile. That's it. That's what I'll do. I just deliver with a bullshit and a smile. That's it. That's the secret to success.
And I'm the man today to ask the questions.
Go for it. Wherever you want.
Start. The role of a promoter. Explain to us clearly what the role of a promoter is for you.
Well, to put everything together. I mean, you know, I'd love to say that I was responsible for all the operational success of our shows, but not at all. I'm responsible for the idea and selling it. And behind me is a great team of people who cover everything from the matchmaking, sanction fees, to seating plans, the manifests, hotels, transport. It's a huge operation. But my ultimate role is to put bums on seats and to make the shows as big as possible. Put fights together, come up with the ideas, and then sell it. So once a fight is made, it's really over to the team to make sure that everything's ticked accordingly, and then for me to go on the road. A bit like I'm probably a bit like a glorified used car salesman. You know what I mean? I think that's the same sort of thing.
Glorified.
Or travelling, maybe a photocopy of salesman.
Would you not say that you are currently just a salesman on the road?
Yeah, the same kind of thing.
Yeah,
salesman. I'm on the road.
But used is a bit undervaluing yourself, wouldn't you say, Eddie?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Used, right. You're not used.
No,
I mean,
no. Used and abused. I get in the car and I go all over the country and I sell fights. That's right.
Okay,
so,
right.
And like it's quite tiring actually. It's a great job to have, but there are days when you wake up and you go, I've got to speak to people today, like again and again and again. But when you make a fight where this is a good example. We talk about it till midnight tonight with 400 people because it's fascinating.
Okay, so just for a second here. So what Eddie has told us today, and I want you to listen to this well, and this is for a lot of people out there that blame Eddie Hearn for the fights, certain fights that are made. He's actually said to himself, look, I'm the promoter. I'm the man who's trying to put bums on seats. But he's also told us here today, in this interview, it's not him that directly makes the matchmaking. He's got a matchmaker. So these matches that are being made, is it directly Eddie's foot? He may say, yeah, my job's to go out there and promote it. But ultimately, I'll give it the final say. But ultimately, it's somebody else's responsibility to promote it. So a lot of people say to Eddie, oh, it's Eddie's fault that this fight's happened. It's Eddie's fault. Well, maybe it is because him and his dad are head of Matchroom. I get that. But ultimately, somebody else is making his is a matchmaker. Somebody else within there's a matchmaker. Somebody else is responsible for this. So let me continue.
Sometimes you're selling the product, it's like anything. You believe in what you're selling, it's very easy to talk about. If you come up with a fight, it's good, but it's not, overly sexy. You've got to work hard.
Question I want to ask you: how attached are you to your fighters, and when do you have to detach yourself from a fighter that you find you're getting too close to?
Everybody different. So some fighters will have managers.
Yes.
Some are self-managed.
Yeah.
Some like a direct relationship with a promoter.
Yeah.
If you have, some fighters that I've worked with in the past, you're not even really allowed to talk to the fighter, which for me, I don't know how I can get motivated if I haven't got a relationship with someone. If I like you, if we're close, I'm going to work a lot harder for you than I will for someone that I don't even know or I don't even really talk to. It's just common sense. So some fighters I've been with for a long time, I'm very close to. Some fighters I speak to every day. Some fighters I don't speak to.
Okay. So let me use the term cash cow.
Yeah.
And thrown under the bus. Cash cow means
Writing's not that easy, but
Thank you.
Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct, but it's wordy. And
the guy that brings the money in, you find that as a precious fighter. A guy that, you know what, come to the end of his contract, not very good fighter, not performing. Is it, for you, a situation where it's perceived by others to be throwing the fighter under the bus?
Not really, because you can't make a fight. I don't decide who fights who. I put the opportunities to a fighter.
Right.
So if they don't want the fight, they don't have to take it.
So there's not a situation you've got to take this fight, because if you don't take this fight, it's your opportunity.
A fighter at a certain level.
Right.
I'm not talking about a world champion or anything like that.
Right.
Who I might say, you have to take this fight. This is the fight for you.
Right.
And it might not be. It might be a 10-round fight. You're 10-0.
Yeah.
Right. You've beaten everybody. Journeyman guys. And I'm with a guy who's 5-3. Okay. And they go. You turn around. And you go. I don't like that fight.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
really?
So but look, that's the fight for you. Otherwise, I can't work with you.
Right.
I don't. But the higher level guys.
Yeah.
You put the opportunities to their team. And to the training team, the manager if they've got one,
right.
the agent, the lawyer,
yep.
And they'll look at the opportunity, they'll look at the money, of course, and they'll make the decisions. If they say no, you have to come up with another one. But if they say no too many times, it's like, what am I doing here? It's a bit like the Eubank situation with Golovkin, where I was asked to deliver something, delivered it, and then they didn't want to sign a contract. So in that situation, it's just a bit disheartening.
I'm glad you came on to that point, because I want to add something. I've had a conversation on my live shows, and I want you to clarify this for me. So I'm talking to the man himself. Intellectual property. A fighter, I'm not saying you do or you don't, I'm going to find out. If you sign a fighter, and when you sign that fighter to your promotion band, which is matchroom and boxing, is there in a contract that you hold their intellectual property that even after they've retired, you can still have their fights on record and you can still play those fights and make money on it?
Good question. Good question. Intellectual property rights is generally something that people talk about but know nothing about.
Right.
Okay. So and fighters love to use that phrase. What about my intellectual property rights? They say, "What are you into?" I don't know. I read that we should hold them.
Yes.
In answer to your question, fighters retain those rights nowadays. So, for example, Chris Eubank Jr. is a good example.
Yes.
He would have a contract, and his contract would say that he has non-exclusive rights to his fights moving forward, as we would as well. The exclusive rights to a fight and to these libraries that you talked about used to be held by the promoter.
Yes.
And actually, Eubank's a good example because Nigel Benn and Ambrose Mendy had a big, they were talking about who owns the rights to the fights. Back then, no one really perceived there to be any value to the long-term rights of the fight. But obviously, classic fights, as they've progressed, as it happens now, because of social media, because of YouTube, the value of fights over time is actually much less because people have seen it.
Yeah.
People can go on, and as much as you try and take over the piracy element, it's on YouTube. So how much value does it give a broadcaster to show a fight of that magnitude? So, for example, in this fight, if this fight is unbelievable, Kell Brook can sell that fight around the world for as long as he wants and benefit of it. Okay, it has to.
This was just part of an experiment. Put some pictures up online, got some good...
mirror the contract of the host broadcaster. So, for example, if Sky Sports had 12 months exclusivity in a territory, UK, Brook couldn't sell that to a UK broadcaster for 12 months. Okay, fine. If there's any value in the fight, it's going to be long term anyway.
Yep.
So, after that, if ESPN come on, in wherever, in Asia, and say, we'd like to buy Brook Golovkin, he can sell it. But, that is something that has progressed over time. I believe it's actually not a waste of time, but I think sometimes people think there's so much more value in the rights that they believe.
Let me throw something to you. Muhammad Ali, the greatest.
Yeah.
Okay. His property or his intellectual property has been bought for, I think it was 50 million or something like that. So there's somebody else out there who can make money off of Muhammad Ali. Surely.
Yeah, but who did they buy it off?
I think it was some American guy.
Yeah. But things have changed. The business has changed. You are also talking about one of the biggest sporting icons of all time.
Yes.
So, but just like every sports contract. Things change. The world changes. Back then, people didn't think that in 50 years' time, Muhammad Ali's old fights would be worth a lot of money because the broadcast platforms were different.
Right.
There wasn't as many broadcasters out there to purchase international sporting rights.
Okay.
So, if it was in today's world, there was no way Muhammad Ali's lawyer would let anybody have the ownership of the fight unless they pay for it up front.
Mayweather spent $400 million to own rights to all of his fights.
Yeah.
Smart move?
If he can get the monetary value for it. A lot of this time, people like I said, people they believe that they sort of have a chip on their shoulder that that's mine, And now, like, if a fighter comes to us, we want our fights, our rights to our fights for future. I'll go, all right then. Like,
that means
there isn't the value. Listen, if you're Muhammad Ali, if you're Floyd Mayweather, then there's going to be huge value.
Yeah.
If you're a world champion or a British, there's just no value in those rights. But if it makes the fighter feel more comfortable, because every fighter, until they trust you, everybody believes that the promoter is trying to have one over on the fighter. That's just like
is that true?
History.
Is that true?
It's true. It's true. Not in different levels.
Right.
Some might say, "No, I've got a good promoter," but not a promoter. Like others might go, "Don't trust any promoter." You know what I mean? You have to build the trust. You have to gain the trust and respect from the fighter. They can't just automatically trust you. It's like a girl, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like going out with a girl. You want to trust them and you give them the benefit of the doubt.
You do your research as well.
You
ask your mate, what's she like?
Yeah, exactly. And the fighter will as well.
Yeah.
But it's still through experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're with a good girl, you think, I trust this girl.
Yeah.
And that's just the same. It's like any relationship where trust is brought in. And there have been some dog promoters out there in time who have stolen and nicked from fighters. So it's only like a track record. It's like the girl who you spoke to your mate. Oh well, actually, she cheated on the other one. Oh, she might be alright. It's just like a promoter.
So then, what type of a girl are you then, Eddie?
I'm an honest girl, but because I can be, I don't need to nick and I don't need to pilfer. We've got a very solid business in and out of boxing. So we don't, like if we were skinny, if we were banging trouble, if we needed to somehow make more money to survive, or maybe I would be I'd be a dog.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that have been in the past have done it because they are in trouble. And they are skinny. And their accounts do look terrible. So they do anything for a way out. We don't have to do it. Maybe one day we will.
Right. So I just want to pause that right there. So according to Eddie Hearn, he says that they don't need to steal, they don't need to kind of cheat fighters out of their contracts and stuff, and that's fair enough. And they've done really well, Matchroom, because obviously they've got the darts and all the rest, and the football, or they had the football, the darts and stuff. So I mean, what confuses me is if you don't have to thief, you don't have to do this, and you don't have to do that, then why couldn't you have a solid set of fighters in your stable that you could bring along slowly and then build them into pay-per-view fighters, right? Build them into pay-per-view fighters and then have a stable of pay-per-view fighters without putting them in situations where they are crashing and burning early in their careers or they're getting seriously injured in their careers. I'm not sure. Then again, you could say to yourself that it isn't Eddie that's the manager. I don't know, but all of the fighters from the majority of the fighters from that stable are in fights that are they don't make sense. Khan fighting Canelo, Brook fighting Golovkin, like those fights don't make sense. Khan and Brook at those times were still relatively. I won't say they had X factor, but they were still guys that you could say, all right, I'd pay pay-per-view for those guys, provided they give me good opposition. But maybe Eddie can explain a little further into why those fighters took those risks. Maybe Eddie can tell us, or why those fighters were put into those risky situations.
We're all right at the moment. So we think that our reputation is everything. Yeah, like you talked about, you do your research.
Yeah.
I talk to anyone we represent.
Yeah.
And as a fighter to fighter,
Yeah.
and ask them what you think. Maybe the only criticism will be, oh, they got so big, they're not as interested in it as much anymore.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, you're probably not that great a fighter. Do you know what I mean? Because if you are, I'm on you all the time.
Yeah.
Some fighters have to, we're in a situation now, as brutal as it may sound, where if you're not a great fighter, I'm not really that interested.
So do you throw them under the bus then?
Not under the bus, I want to find out.
You say you want to find out. But you,
I'll tell you something.
okay.
The difference between throwing them under a bus
Yeah.
and finding out is
Yeah.
you get them to a stage
Yeah.
where we're ready to find out.
Right.
Throwing under a bus is saying, right, you're not ready for this fight, but fuck it, go in here and at least we'll find out now. We make the investment, we build you,
Yep.
we give you every chance,
Yep.
then we need to know.
Okay.
Okay?
All
so
right.
that's like, this is the extreme version of that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, Kel, you've done everything, you've been up and down, you've had some horrors,
Yeah.
you've had bad luck, you've
Yeah.
been for everything, but we're there, we've beaten, we've had a couple of mandatories, now we need to know. How good are you? Because everyone tells me you
special.
are the best.
Yeah.
So let's see it.
Right. So now this is very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Because we're in COVID-19, or we're in the COVID-19 era. So if that was the case, if that's the way Eddie was thinking, pre-COVID, if that's the way he was thinking pre-COVID, imagine what he's thinking now. If you're not very good, if we're not talking to you, it's probably because you're not very good, or we need to find out how good you are, so you need to be tested. So all those guys that you've seen that were up and coming, unbeaten fighters, and you've seen them sensationally get beat on Sky Sports on these these upsets where guys have been fighting and getting beat, it's because he wanted to find out how good they were. And he was told that they were really good. So guys who potentially could have gone on to be pay-per-view stars, or potentially stars of the future for British boxing, are now either being written off, are being considered they've reached their level, considered hype jobs. And if you think about the amount of fighters that's happened to, how much damage has that done to British boxing in terms of building pay-per-view stars, in terms of looking for the next superstar? How much damage has that done? And where, again, I ask the question, where's the next British superstar coming from? So I'm asking these questions. I want to hear what you all got to say about it, because this is what the promoters say now, not me, not my words. This is exactly what he's saying. And then you think to yourself, people like Michael Hunter, he showed how good he was, or did he? Was the Povetkin fight the fight for Hunter to show what he could do against Povetkin, and he didn't beat Povetkin up? Maybe he was meant to beat Povetkin up. Maybe it was Hunter's job to knock Povetkin out, stop Povetkin, and maybe it would have been Hunter that had been fighting against Dillian White, and not Povetkin. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because now Hunter, who's a very good fighter, and then the shape Hunter came in for that fight, he was heavier. He wasn't in the best of shape, or the shape he usually is in. He was a lot heavier coming in against Povetkin. So it makes you wonder what the discussions were and why Hunter no longer is with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom or DAZN, whatever it is. It makes you wonder. And it also makes you wonder who is next on the chopping block. Of course, if people have still got contracts, who's next? Whose contract is next to be released? It doesn't sound good at all. And if that's the case, then the likes of Boatsi and Akoli are going to have to step up soon. And that's another, like I said before, let's continue. I hope Eddie does keep with this. If he does keep with this, it doesn't bode well for British boxing. With the amount of stable of fighters they've got, it doesn't bode well because you're going to see a lot more crash and burn.
You lose to Gennady Golovkin, go back, maybe defend the welterweight title, maybe fight Canelo, but let's find out. Because he's 30, he's made his money.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah. So it ain't really.
Wait. Go back a second. What did he just say? Did he just say fight Golovkin, fight Golovkin, fight Spence, and then maybe Canelo?
That's it, mate. Okay. Difference between Frank and Hamilton, very cut managers and.
Wait. Let me get this.
Then we need to know.
Okay.
So that's like. This is the extreme version of it.
Let me get that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, Kel, you've done everything. You've been up and down. You've had some horrors.
Yeah.
You've had bad luck. You've
Yeah.
been for everything. But we're there. We've beaten. We've had a couple of entries. Now we need to know. How good are you? Because everyone tells me you are the best.
Yeah.
So let's see it. You lose to Gennady Golovkin, go back. Maybe defend the welterweight title. Maybe fight Canelo. But let's find out. Because he's 30. He's made his money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it ain't really free. I'm cashing in. He's got money. He's got houses. They want to see if he has got that level that everyone talks about.
Yeah.
Oh my God, are we going to find out?
We are.
You know, it's not like he's fighting, Broner or even Thurman or these kind of guys.
Yo Dan.
Yeah. But he's fighting. It's the old track.
Absolute. And you've got to give him credit for that. Eddie, what's your view on the internet world, the YouTube? Are you a person that looks at YouTube a lot, or are you a man that kind of swerves it?
Not really. I mean, I only really use YouTube to look at fighters. So, whether it's opponents, our guys evolve, guys we're looking to fight. I look at Coogan stuff every now and again, but it's been a huge part of the success and growth of the sport. So you can't ignore it. It's a bit like social media. Social media is a real pain, and it's difficult when you're knocking your bollocks out every day to get stick from a guy who's probably not even
done
looking for a job.
Exactly. I can appreciate that.
At the same time, you have to embrace it.
Yeah.
So there's been times where I thought, I'm going to come off to it and let our social media guys run my account.
Yeah.
And it's like that kind of defeats the object. I've got the followers I've got because I interact. And we're as big as we are because we interact with them. But they like us or not, we're still there. You can ask us a question, we'll answer it.
Yeah.
And fans like that. They like that. The great thing about boxing, as you found being here today, is it's accessible. So you can come to a Man United press conference, start sitting down with Rooney and going, all right, Wayne, so tell me this.
Yeah.
You'd have someone stand over you if you did go, last question, blah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, you wouldn't even get the interview anyway. So, the great thing about boxing is that the fighters are accessible. Everyone will talk about it. And
two
great for the
questions.
internet.
Al Heyman. Have you met him?
Yes.
He exists.
Yes, it does exist. Yeah.
Okay. What would the impact be of Al Heyman being in the UK, and how would that affect Matchroom and their sort of marketing model?
I don't think it really affects us a great deal because we have a 5-year contract with Sky, so we can't really move anywhere anyway. We have 24 shows a year. People look at the UK market and think, wow, there's an opportunity there. But if there is, why are we the only ones making money? There's other promoters that are operating in the UK who aren't being successful, who aren't showing profits on their company accounts. So just like I look at America and I go, there's an opportunity there. How do you go and monetize it? I don't believe I could go into America and become a success because I don't believe there is the broadcast contract out there needed. Really, as a promoter, you're only as good as a broadcaster you work for.
BT Sports?
Yeah,
if Al Heyman wants to go that way?
I think BT Sports will end up doing something for Box Nation. That's what I think. I think Heyman and I know they're looking at doing some stuff for ITV4. But again, that's not a rights deal, that's a time buy, more or less. So I can't operate a business without a rights fee. Through his investment, Heyman's been able to go to broadcast in America and buy airtime and put fights on, which is the most disastrous model you could ever put together. And I think now they're looking at it and going, right, cut. and they're trying to develop a more streamlined business. If you come to the UK and speak to a broadcaster, ITV, and say, right, we want 8 shows a year, we don't need a rights fee, we've got investment to pay for that. Can he make it work? Maybe. You know, do you understand the market? Do you understand the punters? That's the difference. I do. You know, some promoters don't. I don't think you can just put on a show and then the public will go, oh, I'm going to go to that. You know, I think there's the Matchroom brand, along with the fighters, of course, who are the important people.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about going to one of those events,
Right.
rather than going to an event with no story, if that makes sense.
I understand that.
Our man is a very bright guy, a lot of power, huge amount of fighters. I'm not sure that the original model has worked or will work, but he's a huge player in the sport, and I think they'll do something over here. You know. I hope, honestly, you know, when Channel 5 do something, how do you feel about that? Over the moon. More boxing, the better. If you've got the best product, it's only going to benefit you, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think there's opportunities to make money in the UK market. I mean, the only way we make, where we make our significant money is pay-per-view.
Right.
And that's the same, actually, in any territory, just like America. You know, if it's Bob Arum, if it's Top Rank, Mayweather, they're all making their money out of pay-per-view.
Okay, I'll leave it right there, Eddie. But look, if that's the case, again, if that's the case, if pay-per-view is how you make your money, as you're claiming, then wouldn't it be better for you to build more pay-per-view stars? Wouldn't it be better for you to kind of ensure your fighters are managed better? Wouldn't it be better that you would not put your fighters in suicidal fights? Wouldn't it be better that you build your fighters up gradually? Seeming you have the money, seeming that you have the money, you don't have to fill anybody out of a pound, your accounts are good, you have the fighters, then surely you can take the time to invest in 4 or 5 fighters that you say are pay-per-view fighters for the future. But no, even at the top end, Brook, Joshua. So whatever this model is that they say is a success, when it comes to matchmaking their fighters, that's the biggest weakness within their setup. For all the stuff that they do, if Matchroom could get their matchmaking set up properly, they could be a real force to be reckoned with. If they could get their matchmaking right, and they can actually say, you know what? Here's 5 fighters that we know are top quality. That's why we've signed them. We know you're good. We know you're good fighters. Don't throw them. Which Matchroom fighters have you taken unnecessary risks? Oh my God. Which fight? Okay, I'll give you a list of them. Let's go. 1, Ted Cheeseman. He didn't have to take the fight he took. What's the other guy's name? The Geordie Golovkin, Lewis Ritson. He didn't take the risk he did. He was doing fine. There were 2 fighters there that were doing good for themselves. Ted Cheeseman had just beaten Carson Jones, so he could have taken another fight. He didn't have to go down the route and take that fight because was it a European title fight? I'm not sure. And he got whooped left, right, and centre. There's loads of them. I don't need to sit here and talk about that. You know, if you're a boxing fan, you know, Kell Brook's another. Why? Kell Brook, Anthony Joshua. Why do you need to do those things? If you've got the money and you've got the platform that you say you've got, why do you need to be doing that? Why do you need to be putting these fighters in such risky fights? These fighters can still be unbeaten. Why would you put David Price in for Alexander Povetkin? You know what I mean? Why would you stick Dave Allen in with Luis Ortiz? You know, why would Dave Allen fight Dillian White when he clearly wasn't ready? Well, you stick Dave Allen the first time in to fight Leroy Thomas, okay? Then you stick him back in again. Why? What for? You stick him with Tony Yoka. Why are you sticking him with Tony Yoka? And Dave Allen has got a following. Then you look on the other side. You look at somebody like Josh Warrington. Look how Josh Warrington's career has been. Look at Josh Warrington and his career. You know, he's built his career. His career's been built up nicely. He had the Leeds fans behind him, and he's probably the next thing, probably closest to a Ricky Hatton, Josh Warrington. Do you understand? He's got the fans, and he's got fans that I think genuinely that will travel from England to America to watch him fight, regardless of social media. He's got that genuine, you know, he's got that heartfelt sort of connection with fans. So Josh Warrington's one of those guys. He's a good example. Cheeseman, Ritson are potential pay-per-view stars. Really? Really? I mean, I just think you're just coming on here for an argument, because if you listen to what I'm saying carefully, if you listen to me, instead of being emotional, Ritson and Cheeseman were good fighters, right? They need to be built up. Built up. Kell Brook, when he first looked at him, wasn't a potential pay-per-view star. He ended up making pay-per-view, being a pay-per-view. So look at Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's never won a British title, never won a European title. He won a WBC interim belt. Was it interim belt? Yeah. So wait, he's pay-per-view. So what's the model for pay-per-view today? What's the model for pay-per-view today? You've got to make sense. What's the model for pay-per-view? Dave Allen's been on pay-per-view. David Price has been on pay-per-view. What are you talking about? So I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, bro. I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't understand. These are guys, if they were managed correctly, and if they were treated, if they were managed like kind of Frank Warren manages fighters. Example, you look if Warren had managed had managed the career of Ritson and the career of Cheeseman, we'll be talking about Cheeseman and Ritson very differently today. I just think they're never going to be world champions, and Matchroom knows that. Matchroom don't take as many risks with their prize assets like Buatsi. Yeah, right. Really? Okay. You believe that? You believe that? Well, I can tell you the last guy that Buatsi fought was a former kickboxer. I think a former kickboxer or UFC wrestler, right? And I'm not knocking Buatsi, but that guy was catching Buatsi with right hands all night long. And he's no Olympic champion or had a long decorated amateur career. He was a UFC or MMA fighter doing that. So I don't know where that's coming from. So I don't agree with you. I'm sorry. I can't agree with that. I can't agree with you. I can't agree with you. If you're very talented, then isn't Anthony Joshua very talented? Would you say he was guided carefully to fight a guy in Andy Ruiz? He didn't have to fight Andy Ruiz. That wasn't a mandatory. That wasn't a mandatory. So I'm not sure where you're going about highly talented. That was their big pay-per-view star. Was that managed correctly and guided correctly? I don't know about that, my friend. I don't know about that. I don't know. But anyway, it's down to your opinion. But anyway. So my thoughts are this. That, going back to my original point, that when I spoke about Brook versus Crawford, all that time back then, and I said to you then that they were going to try and make this fight happen. Now we've got it. It's happening. We've got it, and it's happening. I believe in November. And the same scripts will be pulled out. He's big at the weight. Remember when he fought Golovkin? Remember when he fought Errol Spence? He's big at the weight. They'll talk about that. They'll spin that line, and people will pay for it. And I won't be surprised if Crawford versus Brook it ends up being a pay-per-view. It doesn't mean anything to be pay-per-view anymore. The model has been set. So you don't have to win a world title to be on pay-per-view. You don't have to have a world title. You don't even have to have a British title to be a pay-per-view star today in the current climate. So Brook has done more than that. He has been a world champion. He's fought arguably two of the best fighters of his generation, or three. Sean Porter, see, my mind's gone blank now. Sean Porter, Golovkin, and Spence. So that's three fighters he's fought. So you're going to give him credit for that. But it's the damage that's been done. And I don't think he should have come back. I never thought he should have fought Spence. I thought he should have vacated the title, moved up and fought Hurd. Became a two-weight world champion. Stayed unbeaten. Shouldn't have fought Golovkin. Ruined his career. And now he's going to go in and fight Crawford. And if he's got all this money, why is he fighting Crawford? A fight which would have been better. A fight which would have been better for Brook would have been him to fight someone like Danny Garcia, flat-footed, one he could counterpunch. That would have been better for Brook. Matchup stylistically, probably been better for him than fighting someone like Terence Crawford, who's going to pepper him with punches like a surgeon. Of course, it's a non-event. There are people here that are defending Buatsi's career. I'm sorry, but if you're, I think 5 years ago, Brook would have done very well against Crawford because he punches, he's accurate, and I'm still not convinced about Terence Crawford's chin at welterweight. Don't care what anybody tells me. I'm not convinced. Yeah, Brook Garcia is a good fight. Do you understand? That's matchmaking. I would rather, if I'm going to put Brook in with a pay-per-view, Brook Garcia. Flat-footed. Be easier to counterpunch. That's what I'd put Brook in with. I'd even put Brook in with Keith Thurman. Why? Because Thurman's knocking nobody out anymore. Thurman's got injuries. He's carrying injuries. And Thurman, I don't think he's as motivated for the sport as he used to be. So Brook versus Thurman, another good fight. But Brook versus Crawford, no. That's not good matchmaking. Do you understand? So all these people now that are defending Buatsi, his career is not being managed correctly. And I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to go look and look at that fight again where he fought that guy. Well, I can't remember what the guy's name is, Banks, or I don't know what his name was. But he couldn't get out of the way of the right hand. Over and over again, he's getting that right hand's being chucked. And at that level of opposition, the guy wasn't a puncher. If the guy was a puncher, we wouldn't be talking about Buatsi today. But you all don't listen to me. I'm tired of talking to you all because you don't listen. I'm fed up of talking to you all. Because when I tell you all about these things happening over and over and over again, look, what did I tell you about boxing media not too long ago? I told you the majority of boxing media in the UK are in the pocket of promoters. I told you this. They're in the pocket promoters. It's biased. I've told you this. I've told you this because I've been there, I've seen it, and I've seen it and I've done it. I'm not talking from a guy that's a keyboard warrior. I've been there, I've seen it and done it. But you'd rather today. It seems that the society we have today, you're quite happy to believe the narratives, quite happy to listen to falsehood. You're quite happy to go along to get along rather than actually see things for what they actually are and the truth. Do you understand? So you're going to understand. You're going to get it. The only time you all understand is when a lot of you boxing fans understand is when your fighter is flat out on the canvas, laid out flat, and then you call it an upset because you haven't seen the signs before. The signs are always the same in every single fight. That is an upset. You get the red flags beforehand. When David Price fought Matt Skelton, those were the signs back then. Interestingly enough, I thought that it was going to be a southpaw that was going to beat David Price, right? I thought Audley Harrison had the tools to beat David Price at the time. People laughed at me. But then you go back afterwards and you see afterwards that it actually was a Tony Thompson that ends up going and beating him, a southpaw. And a very experienced southpaw to that. You know, I look at management. I mean, what do we want today? There seems to be a lot of people in the sport of boxing today that have car crash management mentality. They don't have a clue about building a fighter up, taking the right fights, moving from being a prospect to a contender to being a champion. Do you understand? Prospect, contender, and champion. A lot of people talk about a guy knocks about 4 or 5 guys out. He moves from prospect, and then next minute they're talking about him being a champion. There's no contender. There's no build-up. The various stars, the southpaw, the orthodox, the tall fighter, the short fighter, the guy who fights well on the inside, the guy who fights well on the outside, the guy's got an excellent jab, the guy's got a good right hand. The different dimensions of fighter and things a fighter has to go through before they fight to become a world champion. That's why you get a lot of this nonsense today of he's learning on the road, because you skipped those things. British, Commonwealth, European, world. That's what you have to learn on the road. You know, these are the things that's why you look at someone like Tyson Fury. Yeah, Tyson Fury is saying Tyson's learning on the road. He did it. He went through the gears and then got his shot at Klitschko and beat Klitschko. Do you understand? So I will always, and all fighters, I like to see them going through the gears where they can. I like to see them going through the different levels, fighting. Do you understand? Nigel Benn never fought for a British title. Never fought for, I don't think he fought for a European title either. But Ben was a Commonwealth champion. He fought for the Commonwealth. He won the Commonwealth title, remember? And then he fought Watson, got beat by Watson. Found his level there, went to America, came back and took a lot of fights. Remember Ben fighting Sanderline Williams? That's going back a while. Then he went to America and fought Doug DeWitt in a tough fight. And he beat DeWitt to become champion. Do you understand? I just don't think eventually you take these shortcuts, you become a cropper. But your boxing media in UK are not going to tell you that. Because if they tell you that, then you're not going to buy the pay-per-views. Then you're not going to invest in the fighters. Again, I ask the question. Out of all these next-gen fighters, let me ask you a question. Out of all these next-gen fighters that were on, how many of them have gone on to be A, pay-per-view stars, B, world champions? We got the same here, in the same learning on the road, excuse with Dillian White too, who's had tough fights and has a similar pro career. See, then now this is the difference between, this is where your knowledge in boxing is failing you, because David Haye was actually for Solis. You know, I think he's in World Championships, or he fought in the World Championships, David Haye. So David Haye had extensive amateur background from the Fitzroy Lodge before he even turned pro. So you can't really compare David Haye, his amateur career, and fighting about his amateur career with the sort of amateur experience David Haye had before he turned pro to Dillian White, who was a kickboxer. You can't compare the two fighters. And if that's the case, Dillian's done well for his career, to be fair. He's done well. Because I know back in the day, I'm not sure if a guy who hadn't fought for a British title could be a pay-per-view star. And not just one, a lot of pay-per-view. Was it 4 or 5 pay-per-views? Not even a world champion. Not even fought for a world title. Your pay-per-view. So the model has changed. The model has changed in boxing. And I tell you now, you might not like what I'm saying here, but the most unforgivable sin that they've done, Matchroom, was keep Wilder away, or keep Josh away from Wilder. And it looks like they're going to say do the same nonsense again with the Fury fight. It looks like they're going to do the same nonsense again. It looks like they're going to do the same nonsense again. No, I'm not giving nobody no chance, man. I don't need to get slapped slapped 3 times in the face by the same person to know they're not my friend. You understand? You know what I mean? I'm not here. See, you can give him a chance, but you know what? I'm going to keep on cashing in. From now, I'm going to keep cashing in and keep making money on this now. I should have done it before, but I started cashing in. Cashing on the Dillian White fight. I should have cashed in on the McCaskill fight. I cashed in on the Joshua fight. I'm just going to keep on cashing in. Do you understand? It's just, there's a certain model. We get red flags before fights happen. The red flag for Buatsi, let me tell you something. If Callum Johnson lands them right hands on Buatsi, there will be no more Buatsi. If Callum Johnson lands those right hands on Buatsi, there's no more Callum Johnson. But I see what they're going to try and do with Callum Johnson. I want to see Callum Johnson get 2 or 3 fights. 2 or 3 nice fights. And you'll talk like I don't know. I'm not going to say anything. You'll find it for yourself. You'll find it for yourselves. Both Buatsi and Yard worked with Tony Cisse, who's a regular on this channel and who's a friend of mine, a good brother of mine. So, Akoli's walk, Akoli, yes. You keep talking about Akoli. But the warning signs about Akoli was in that European, was it a European title fight against that guy that I've never heard of? He hurt Akoli in that fight. It's another one, mate. I just wait. You have to see whether that routine he's got at the moment is good enough at world level. I don't believe it is. I don't believe hugging and grabbing is boxing. I'm sorry. I don't believe that is, and I don't believe at world level, elite world level, that's going to last. I'm telling you, this is Henry Akin One Day, part 2. I keep saying it. You all listen. You all don't listen. See, a guy I do like, though, just to finish, a guy I do like and I think is quite tasty, believe it or not, is that Lyndon Arthur, trained by Pat Barrett. I think he's a very talented boxer. Lyndon Arthur, light heavyweight. Very interesting, very good fighter. I like him. Well, good. Does spent a little bit more, too much time on the ropes, but I like Lyndon Arthur. So, but to be honest, Stephen, if you're going to say that Fury's fake now, to be honest with you, Fury's made all the money he needs to make. He's done all he needs to do. He's beaten Klitschko. He's beaten Klitschko. He's beaten Wilder. two, as far as I'm concerned, 2 Hall of Famers. 2 guys who are defending the World Championship more than 9 times. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Let me. I've got some of these comments that come up. Oh my God. I hope you don't go running afterwards, but Alan, listen to some of these. You've got to read some of these comments. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Totally agree with you there. Okay. I'm putting these comments up because I'm sure I'll be coming back to this video. In fact, I'm going to come back to this video. I'm putting these comments up, people saying now, so that when I come back and do the video afterwards, after this, the good thing about this now is I can put people's comments up. Remember I said Crawford's chin has not been tested at welterweight. I want to see someone like Brook hit him on it. Yeah, Brook v. Thurman is a good fight. Now, this is the same Ruben Guerrero that has backed, thought Kuzman was going places. This is the same Guerrero that thought that, what's his name, was going places? what's the other guys? Kuzmin and the Polish guy got knocked out the other day by Hellenius. Oh boy. Anyway. Oh dear. And now he says Boats is going places. I think Johnson's such a good fighter. I really do. But his fitness is a problem for me. Stamina. Yep, you can watch the fight and make your mind up. Coley soon coming. Okay. Of course, David Hay was a better fighter than Dillian White. Bad boxing, Dillian White. Natural Hate channel. Oh my dear me. I'm a god. Oh my god. Oh, dear. What you do, you rewind the tape if you're listening from the start and you watch right here and you can see where the agenda is. As a matter of fact, there we go. Won't have any of that on the channel. Is that up? Glowacki fight isn't a mismatch. Can see a Coley winning. Okay. I mean, I'll need to see what Glowacki's done recently. Grabbed Isaac to death. I think Isaac Chamberlain's going places as well. I think he's a good fighter as well. He's got something about him, Isaac Chamberlain. I could see a Coley winning a title at heavyweight in 5 years' time, to be honest. Could you? Really? and Ruben's there agreeing with it. A Coley versus Isaac was terrible fight. Of course it's a terrible fight. There we go. Enough of that. There we go. 5 years, of course. But wait, Stephen, I know you're a big Tyson Fury fan. Tyson's been calling out these guys for ages. Is he calling it Cain Vasquez? Kylie's a lot. He's huge for the weight. Oh my god. Oh dear me. Oh dear me. Yeah, Kawanaki. This is a guy that Ruben Guerrero thought was going to become heavyweight champion of the world, was going to beat Deontay Wilder. This guy, Ruben Guerrero. So just a reminder of the eyes that are making these comments. Yeah, that's why you don't. That's why your fighters. That's why you will never be able to create pay-per-view fighters. You have to understand there's a difference between managing a fighter and car crashes, which fans want. Do you understand? Do you understand the difference between the two? Yeah, I know. He's not on the channel anymore anyway. I don't see people disagree with you so much, Ingram. I don't see people disagree with you so much, Ingram, for years. I've thought 99% of what you say is spot on. Hello, I think they may be trolling you. Maybe they are. Maybe they are. I don't block people to disagree. But my point is this, is when I start a video off and I state the video saying very clearly, this is not about hating. I made it very clear at the start of the video. And then you come in and say that means that you have your own agenda, and I'm not interested in agendas in this channel. Not interested whatsoever. Not interested in agendas. Agendas is not about agendas. I trying to give you a balanced view of the sport. So now He goes, I don't care about creating pay-per-view fighters. I care about great fights. Well, how are you going to have great fights if you don't build great fighters up? You have to build fighters up. I mean, you have to give them the right skills, give them the skill sets, making sure they're in training camps, working and improving the fighters. You can't get great fights if you don't have great fighters. And for you to have great fighters, you have to build fighters up. You have to give them the learning fights. You have to give them the opportunity to grow and to develop. And you don't make sense. You do make no sense whatsoever. You have to build your fighters up, give them a career, which means they have to fight learning fights. It doesn't mean every fight they fight, poor opposition. But you have to build those fighters up. Step up fights. That's why step up fights are there. Prospect, contender, champion, pay-per-view. That's how it should be. That's how it should be. That's how the model should be. That's how you got your great fighters. If you, the Hearns, the Haglers, the Leonards, all these guys, the Durans, they had their fights, they built up, then they took the tough fights, then they were the elite level. But you guys, you're sticking prospects in world title fights. Sorry, a Coley's not that level. Because, yes, I am. Or I was a big Fury fan, respected his honesty towards authority and speaking like a man. But this new version is making me cringe. Which fighters? Okay, I'll come back to me. There we go. This is interesting. You talk about Fury here. Very interesting. But you have to understand about Fury. You have to understand something about Fury. Why has he had the success that he's had now? This version 2 of Tyson Fury. He's not coming out saying some of the things that he was saying previously. If you notice, the controversial Tyson Fury. The Tyson Fury was getting himself in trouble all the time. Remember that Tyson Fury? Well, I know that Tyson Fury very well. I know that Tyson Fury very well. But I told you what it was all about. Tyson Fury's got himself in a very good position now. He's comfortable. He's beaten Wilder. He's beaten Klitschko. He's going to go down. He's going to go down as a Hall of Famer. He will do. Unless something absurd comes up. He's going to come down as a Hall of Fame fighter. So he doesn't need to. He's now not appealing to boxing fans. He's appealing. He's a crossover star, Tyson Fury now, and now he'll soon be on this. There are rumors of him going to be on the Contender Series. So he's a larger than life character now, Tyson Fury. He's not what he was when he started off, and I think somebody's had a word with Tyson Fury and John Fury. You can see, because when you ask them questions about certain things in the media, you ask them certain questions. I don't want to talk about that in the media. I don't want to talk about that. You watch this interview that was done. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. That's because of what happened previously. There was a conversation. Somebody spoke to Tyson and the Fury family, and that's why you see them the way they are today. Now you see John's on This Morning. You would have never seen John Fury on This Morning. Tyson Fury now is in the WWE. They gave him a pass. They let him through the door now. Do you understand? Things have changed. And for things to have changed, he has to change. And those adjustments have been made. Yeah, there is a new Fury. Which fighters do you think are being built up well currently? I have to think about that one. I have to think about that one because I've seen so many fighters not built up very well. A tier fight I thought was built up superbly. One of the best managed fighters in the world today is Deontay Wilder. I don't care what anybody tells me. Deontay Wilder is one of the best managed fighters in the world today. Right? I don't business. I don't care what anybody tells me. Best managed fighter in the world today. In the way his career is structured, in the way the fights he had. Not too dissimilar to Mike Tyson fights, by the way. Not too dissimilar. Not too dissimilar. A lot of people in boxing talk a lot of rubbish. Frauds, I call them in boxing. And you look at Mike Tyson's career, and the guys Mike Tyson was fighting in his career, and he was no Olympic champion, or fought, you know, he didn't make it to the Olympics. And Tyson fought a whole load of fighters that nobody knew about, nobody cared about, nobody cared about. And then he fought the champion, which was Berbick. And Berbick was no big champion, no great champion. Wilder fought a whole lot of people that people didn't care about, didn't want to know about. Along the way, he met Audley Harrison, Olympic champion, right? And a few other guys he fought. And then he fought Stavern, who was ranked, I think, in the top 3 in all governing bodies for the championship of the world in a fight that he wasn't, that a lot of people thought he'd get knocked out in. And he beat Stavern. And they've kept his career, kept him fighting of the who's names in the heavyweight division. They've managed his career. Say what you want, they've pulled guys up. At the time, they were ranked 30th in the world, and they pulled them up in the top 10 for Wilder. They did what was smart. They used the governing body and the power they had to get fighters up and down the rankings. And Wilder fought those guys, and he beat those guys. He's probably the best managed fighter today in terms of what he's done. And I tell you now, you don't want to hear this, that if David Price didn't listen to some of the people, of the frauds around him in boxing, and had a similar career to Deontay Wilder, like when the night he fought Matt Skelton, his people said, you know what? You ain't ready to be fighting the likes of Tony Thompson. You're not ready. Let's pull your career back a bit. You need to work on some things. Your inside game's not good enough. You need to work on some things. Or what we do is, you're not that good. You're not that great. We're going to sell you. We're going to keep you knocking out a few guys we don't care for. People don't care for, and then stick you in against Klitschko, and then get knocked out. Then get knocked out by Klitschko. That would have been smarter management. You get beat by Tony Thompson. Well, who cared for Tony Thompson who got beat twice by Klitschko? People don't remember that. People remember you got done by Tony Thompson. So if everyone's giving David Price all that hype, once they realized, like they did with Deontay Wilder, once they realized when Deontay Wilder got dropped by Harold Sconius, you can't find that fight anywhere on YouTube. You can't find that fight anywhere. They got that wiped off of YouTube. You look at that Harold Sconius fight. If you looked at that Harold Sconius fight of Deontay Wilder, there's no way people would be backing Wilder in the same way. They got Wilder through that phase, and they got him to world champion and make 10 successful or 9 or 10 defenses of the WBC heavyweight championship of the world. You might not like what I've got to say, but you got to respect it. And if they manage fighters like that, more fighters like the Deontay Wilder way, yes, he may have been knocking guys out, but Tyson did the same thing too. The same Mike Tyson. So what? Fury, now global star, probably, to be fair, has to be more cringe to appeal to a commercial audience. I don't know about that. He has become more commercial. I get that. I understand why he would sell out. Is he the same? Just saying, I miss the real one. We all do. We all do. People, like the WWE, but we saw he was going down the WWE route because he kept talking about it even back in 2013. when I did the interview with him, I did the flashback. He would talk about Cain Velasquez then. So Fury always wanted to be a part of WWE. Full credit to him for that happening. The politically correct who don't speak their mind just don't do it for me. I get that. But you saw what happened when Fury did get it. How much support did he get? Wilder should be a bigger star than he is, to be fair. Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say so. Wilder had 5 years as a champ. If he fights for his AJ and a good few guys, wins or loses, he'll have a respectable career. Yeah, I think so too. Fury career managed better than Wilder. Fury's career is managed similar to Wilder. Well, she took the right fights at the right time. So I don't know about better than Wilder. I think you're trying to play the game there, mate. Frank has been good to Fury, yes. I thought well managed was that you have a lots of learning fights. Yes, he did have lots of learning fights. What learning fights had Wilder had? Well, based on I'm not even going to bother trying to explain that to you. I'm not even going to bother explaining it to you. Every Wilder fight has been pretty much the same to Slaverne. Well, to be honest, what happened in the Brazil fight? What happened to the Luis Ortiz fight? What happened to nearly every single fight that Deontay Wilder's been in? It's been a knockout. So what the heck are you talking about, man? Talking foolishness on the channel, man. Come off the channel, man. Talking foolishness. Every Wilder fight's been the same. Yeah, knockout. Because he's one of the biggest punches in world boxing. Knockout. And the only man who stood up to that power and was able to do something different was Tyson Fury. And you got to give him credit for being able to get off that deck that day against Wilder. So that's that. I like Price as a fighter and a guy. Quite sad how his career went. Yeah, but his career is I'm going to call it Twitter management. Price's career was managed by Twitter because it's the same sort of Twitter experts. And a few YouTubers on here that think Price did the right thing taking those fights. Shocking. She never have taken those fights. I agree about Wilder, but you have to say AJ could have been managed better. Well, we knew from many years that, next year's the year that AJ's meant to fight Deontay Wilder. According to Barry Hearn, 2021 is when they wanted to fight Deontay Wilder. That's why Wilder versus Joshua never happened. Wilder isn't that much more complete than he was at start. Is that really good career management? No, that is management. Using what you have, the tools that you got to the best of your ability. That is called management. Using the limited skills that you have and getting the best out of it. That's what they call management or project management. Getting the skills that you've got, the abilities that you have, and making the most of it. That works in the corporate world. It works in business. You might not be very talented. It could be in your singing career. It could be dancing. It could be experts. I mean, Simon Cowell is not a singer, is he? But he uses the talents that he has to promote himself the way that he does. He's judging people on singing. Can he sing? What are you talking about? I swear, sometimes people don't think before they speak. Wilder. Did Wilder get good paydays? Well, that's now down. Are we talking about money here? Are we talking about careers in terms of his boxing career, his fighting career? We'll do his fighting career and how he's been managed as a fighter. I think he's excellent. If we talk about how much money he's made, that's down to his team around him again, and some of the advice he's got around him. Don't know. If Wilder was a yes man, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a deeper question when you talk about paydays and the star that Wilder is today. If Muhammad Ali was around today, and Muhammad was speaking out on some of your biased media and biased people on YouTube, Muhammad Ali today and the things he'd be saying today, you all wouldn't like it. You all didn't like him then, and you wouldn't like Muhammad Ali now. to quit with all the fakeness. If you don't like what Wilder's talking about, you don't like what Wilder's being about, you wouldn't like Muhammad Ali. That's a fact. You wouldn't like Muhammad Ali because Ali will tell you straight. Ali did nothing about no political correctness. Ali will tell you as it is, whether you liked it or not. Ali just told you as it is. That's why Ali was the greatest of all times, because he told you what it was on a political front, and he went in the ring and he beat the crap out of you. Muhammad Ali, that's it. So I don't know where some of you guys are coming from. I don't know what cave some of you are coming out of. But if you're having problems with Wilder and what he's saying, and the reason why Wilder's not making the money he's making, I believe, is because, as far as I'm concerned, he's been shut out. He's not, for example, like a Sugar Ray Leonard. You know, Leonard was like a golden boy. Do you understand? He could fit corporately. He would say things that sponsors would like. Do you understand? But you really wouldn't put Wilder on, although I think he deserves to be, on the cover of Frosties or something like that. You know, or Captain Crunch with Wilder on it. You know, your sponsors are taking a chance because Wilder may come out and say something or do something, i.e., the other day, the video of him twerking, or, you know, so the sponsorship opportunities at Tyson that Wilder gets for speaking out and being himself, that's what I say. The world's fake. A lot of fake stuff going on, man. A lot of fake stuff. A lot of fake stuff, and a lot of you are fake on here as well. Because when I know how I know you're fake. What's this here? I agree with you about Wilder, but I have to say, AJ, you could say has been managed even better. Yeah, but AJ's in the UK. AJ's in the UK. I think there is a huge difference between the UK and the US. The UK market, boxing's a big sport. In the US market, it competes with American football. It competes with basketball. So many different sports, and it's so much bigger. And not everyone's into boxing like they are the UK. So the market in UK is very different. If Joshua was in America, I think he'd do well because he's corporate. You know, if it's those corporate boxes, but I'm not sure how. You know, because they've had Mike Tyson, I think there'd be a lot of pressure on Anthony Joshua to perform like Mike Tyson. Do you understand? So if Joshua was in America, he'd have to overcome the Mike Tyson shadow, the Evander Holyfield shadow. Do you understand? So we'd have those problems there. You know, I think Joshua fighting in America and the Ruiz fight, that really messed up his American crossover. As he'd beaten Ruiz, he'd have been American crossover there, I think. So I can't stand him and what he stands for. So please don't put me as a Maxwell fanboy. No, I wasn't talking about you, Stephen. Wilder isn't much more complete fight. Oh my God, Jesus! Let's skip that comment again. Let Vida. His paydays were okay, but he may have missed out on the AJ super fight. Yep, that's because of the Hearns. I'm not sure what Shelley Finkel actually does. I think somebody needs to interview Shelley Finkel and ask him what he does. What do you think of Brian Custer revealing on TVV that Wilder has been issued a gag order by PBC and is completely unapproachable by media? Have you heard of this before? I love Brian Custer. In fact, Brian Custer has been on our channel before. I like Brian Custer. Got a lot of time for Brian Custer. He's a great guy. A great guy. I've met Brian Custer in person as well. Really, really great guy. Met him very professional. Met him with Showtime when I sat down with Showtime with Stavern when they were fighting Joyce. So I met him, Paulie Malignaggi, Al Bernstein, and Ranello. Met them all the people at Showtime when Stavern took me in the room with him when he was talking about his upcoming fight with Joyce. So it was interesting. It's interesting what they say in fighters' meetings. Very, very, very interesting. Obviously, I can't talk about it, but yeah. Custer's a great guy. So if Custer's saying that, then yeah, if there's a gag order on Mr. Wilder, then why would you? It was like, all we have to do is go back in time We just have to look at what Stacey McKinley told us about Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. When Mike Tyson knew that Holyfield was on PEDs. He said, but I can't come out and say stuff like that. I'm going to lose myself a lot of money. A lot of money. So sometimes when you're trying to get that third fight, you're trying to make that money, the last thing you want is to blow the lid on something that could potentially jeopardize the third fight. And if the information is what it is that's coming out, it is really that damaging. If it really is true and it's that damaging, then you really are messing up investment on a third fight between the trilogy between Fury and Wilder. And the powers that be are saying to you, you know what, you can't do that, mate. So, and also the flip side of it is the gag order could be also, we have to try and be balanced there. The flip side of it could also be is that you guys are talking a whole heap of shit. And you're damaging us, man. You're representing us and you're talking a whole heap of shit. You and your team are fabricating stuff and you're delusional. And we can't have you talking shit to media. You understand? So there's two sides of the coin, right? So the gag order can be, yeah, man, hey, there's something all dodgy going on here. Maybe Fury did cheat. The other side is, you know what? You're really making us look bad here. And we need that third fight. And you need to keep quiet. So it could be one or the other. I don't know. But obviously, a gag order is there for a reason. I've seen it disgusting twerking by Wilder, absolute insult to heavyweight boxing. Opie stays anonymous. Well, I guess that doesn't help. That really doesn't help. It doesn't help, in my opinion. You can be free, but it doesn't help. This is the sponsorship thing again. That stuff doesn't... It's sponsors say, you know what? I'm glad we didn't invest in Wilder. That's what the sponsors would say. But then, hey, Mayweather didn't win his sponsors and he did well for himself. Wilder's hands are shot and got metal in them. I think he's like Nassim with hands and Floyd now, but not the skills of Floyd. Yeah, quite potentially. So you've got to make the most of that. Got to make the most of it. Baby team, that's bad. Yeah, it is pretty bad. But like I said, we both know AJ won't fight Wilder or Fury until they want to cash him out. Yeah, that's it. Or unless Pulev does us a favor, knocks him out. Why the hell didn't Price finish Povetkin off? He didn't follow him when he was falling back into ropes and KO him. Well, that's what happens when a guy's not got great confidence in himself. Yasser Hussein says, yes, 100%. I'm sure Wilder got paid more than what Hearn tells us reportedly. Wow. Ali, a real man of real conviction. There we go. I'm telling you, a lot of people are faking boxing. They're absolutely fake. And they don't really think about what they're saying. How can you say Michael Wilder's been fighting a whole heap of bums? So what was Mike Tyson doing before he fought Trevor Berbick for the heavyweight championship of the world? And who the hell was Trevor Berbick? The guy that beat up on old Muhammad Ali? Really? Berbick was no real champion. Come on. Come on. Oh, Mike Tyson blew up a blown up light heavyweight when he knocked out Marcus Spinks. That was a super fight. Spinks hadn't done anything at heavyweight compared to like Evander Holyfield. I thought Holyfield was going to go the same way. Different kettle of fish, different gravy. Man, I like Muhammad Ali as a boxer, but reserve my right as a democracy to his views on some things, but that's his religious prerogative. I like Ali too. I'm honest. I think his reviews were negative. But let me ask you a question. Did you suffer the way Ali suffered? Did you go through the pain that Ali went through? Were you in Ali's shoes? And would you speak the same way if you were in Ali's shoes? It's all right to speak from things from the comfort of your home. But if you, and that's the that's the problem a lot of people of color are having at the moment, because a lot of people speaking on behalf of situations that they will never experience in their lifetime. They will never experience in their lifetime, and they will never be able to understand certain things. So a lot of things Ali was saying were the truth. You might call them negative. They might make you feel uncomfortable, but because nothing was being done about it, and nothing still is being done about it till this day, it is what it is. So I think Ali did what he did. He did for his people. I think, and having had a closer look at Ali, seeing his house and moving around people who were with him at that time, I have a very different outlook on Ali. And you've got to think about what was going on at that time. You're talking about a time where a black man couldn't walk into a shop. He was Olympic gold. He won the Olympic gold medal, and he still wasn't given his dues. Olympic champion, fought for America, and that's what happened to him. Being refused because of the color of his skin. Yeah, and then you turn around and say it's negative. Some of the things he's been saying. Hey, I think the guy deserves a damn medal for just holding it together for that experience, let alone in that cafe. The people like these stories, but when they have to connect with it emotionally, it's another matter altogether. Very true, didn't bear that in mind. And said Muhammad Ali was exploited by Don King. Yeah, okay. But he might have been exploited. People were quick to talk about Don King exploiting people, but also they got paid very well as well. They never say about Don King paying people very well. They always say about Don King exploiting people. Don King did a lot for his people. Let me explain that to you. And he did just rip people off. Don King paid people a hell of a lot of money. But you don't say that. Of course, you go down the narrative of those who will say, hey, Don King ripped off a lot of people. But yeah, who else says that narrative? Who else is connected to that agenda? Who else is connected to that agenda? The negative views of Don King. And why they got negative views about Don King? Because of his hairstyle? Because he's the most successful promoter. Period. Why? Then you'll say, well, what about Bob Arum? Doesn't he rip people off? What about Oscar De La Hoya? Doesn't he rip people off? Doesn't all the promoters in the world rip fighters off? Why is it just when it comes to Don King, it's Don King, when he rips somebody off, it's a problem? Let me look at all those other promoters and then look at Don King and put them all in a room together and then put Don King in that room, apart from the crazy hairstyle. There is a difference. I mean, it's visual. You work that one out. So when you spin these lines, be careful. When you spin the lines, just be careful you're not repeating the lines of those whom, when you look at what they really represent, you're against. That's hypocrisy. Not even hypocrisy. Yeah, that's hypocrisy. Okay. This is going to be interesting because you're going to get the real faces of people come out now. In 10-year career, it's good management to stretch talent. So you're earning good money for 10 years, yes. But if you're not looking to do two different fights at the end of the start, is that good fighter development? Bro, it's called making the best of what you have. What is your job, by the way? I always want to ask you what your job is, because you're not in the real world. Because as a coach, right? Let me give you examples as a coach. I have a player that can do 2 or 3 things excellently, but the rest of his game's a bit questionable as a batsman. So I'll say to him, you know what? Those are the 3 moves I want you to work with. Work with those moves excellently. They'll get you as much as possible. Let's hide those weaknesses. And when we're in camp, let's work on improving working on those weaknesses, but still highlighting your strengths. That is coach management. Getting the best out of the guy that you have, or the girl, or the team that you've got in front of you. That's management. What you're talking about, I don't know what planet you're on, but it ain't planet Earth. And it doesn't even work in the corporate world. So wait. Let's see. So what you're basically saying, let's just say small hall promotions will never be able to top a mainstream promoter, right? Never. Well, no, won't happen. So because small hall promotions don't change and they're still in small halls, they should stop. And they've been doing it for 20, 30 years. They should stop. It's nonsensical. The small halls make the best of what they have. And all they can do with that is, you know, the promoters are using their fighters and put them on the big cards by building relations with the big promoters. That's how you advance. Making the best of what you've got and getting the best out of it. Sounds pretty what's the word? Sounds pretty privileged to me. Managed commercially, Wilder's done well, but as a fighter development, not so well. What are you talking about? 9 defenses of the WBC title. 9 defenses of the WBC or 10 defenses of the WBC title. One of the biggest punches ever in heavyweight history. And you're saying he's not... Come on, man. Quiet, man. Pipe down. Did James DeGale go solo after going USA ruin his career? No, I don't. I think going to America was a great thing for James DeGale. And when you look back at James DeGale's career, I mean, I think he did well for himself. But I think injuries were a big problem. And I would like to see James DeGale get away from Jim McDonnell. I'd like to see James DeGale. No, not just Jim McDonnell, but I'd like to see James DeGale with something like a Roger Mayweather. I think he would have been excellent Roger Mayweather, James DeGale. Not been following boxing much of late. How's Uncle Bashir? Hope he's well. He's great. Holy was a PD cheat of the highest order and a headbutter. Yeah, he was. Speaking of that, I've got an interview for you for later on today. I've got Tyson's trainer back in camp, back in to give us some information today. An interview with Stacey McKinley coming up. Wasn't Wilder saying he was gonna release bag of evidence soon? So is he worried about chance of the third fight? I think it's not him that's worried about chance of the third fight. I think it might be the people around him. Took my Muhammad Ali comment down, LOL. Bit disrespectful. No, I didn't. Let's get the comment back up. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Where did you put the comment about Muhammad Ali? Put it back up again. That's your comment, right? Right. There we go. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, mate. Who's next great American heavyweight? If we're going to go along the lines of, I think we have to go back to the Olympics. We'll have to see who the next Olympic champion is going to be. That's where I think it will come from. The next great heavyweight will be from the Olympics. It's got to be. It's got to be from the Olympics. There's no other place I think it will come from, unless, you know, or gone through the USA boxing thing and done well. Yeah, I think so. If Pulis knocks out AJ, Eddie rematch clause will come to rescue. Well, that has to happen to do us a favor if we're going to move on the heavyweight title. AJ rematch clause on his mandatory defense. LOL. If Pulev knocks out AJ, you never know. I hope not, though. Well, I'll be going to the bookies for that one. Ali gave up his boxing career to stand up for his principles. Fearless, courageous, and what principles? Indeed, indeed. Good to have critical eye that shouldn't accept everyone as saints just because everyone says so. What are you talking about? Don King paid people well, but wasn't it of a share of what was owed to them? Don King. Let me ask you a question: Is Don King the only promoter? And do you personally have a relationship with Don King to know he rip people off? That's the question. How do you know who's ripping who off unless the fighters tell you? And how much are they being ripped off? And is it just Don King? What about the people that are around Don King or around those fighters? What about their advisors? What about those advisors that sit around them before they sign the contract? In fact, I have an interview with Uncle Bashir talking about his experiences with Don King. I might bring that one up. It's very easy for you to go with a narrative about Don King. But I'll tell you something. It's people, the same people that didn't want Muhammad Ali to walk into that did not allow Muhammad Ali with his Olympic gold medal to walk into that restaurant are the same people that tell and say that Don King exploited fighters. The narrative. Shelly Finkel, Shannon Briggs, Barry Hearn, Steve Collins. Fighters are getting ripped off up and down the country. It's fighters coming out saying they got ripped off by Don King. That too, no, just agenda pushing pen pushers. So Don King's the only promoter in the world that rips fighters off. He's the only one. But notice, he's the most successful of them all as well. He's the most successful promoter of all time. So with any success, there's always people that are going to talk negatively of you. How long's Stavern been with Don King? How long's Stavern been with Don King? Listen. Can't blame it all on Don King. Can't blame it all on Don King. That's why they've got advisors around, legal advisors. So you never think that the lawyers and the solicitors and the friends near them are not ripping him off as well? So saying Don King ripped him off. Don King may have given them what they deserve. And then afterwards, before that fighter gets the money, there's been taken out for money taken out for training camp. Money's been taken out for legal fees. Money's been taken out for sparring. Man, come on. Come on. Muhammad Ali not going to Vietnam was very just. The USA bombed and killed millions of women and children. Yet we only hear on news about the deaths of the soldiers that were there killing people. Indeed. Indeed. So all I say is when you open your mouth to speak certain things, just remember someone, somewhere in the back room is pushing these agendas for you to speak out on. And I can assure you that the people that push those agendas are not people that would particularly like me and what I have to say. A lot of these agendas that are pushed out there and these pen pushers are by people who've caused years of suppression, years of hatred and pain and division. Don King was a successful black man. Yes, his past was criminal. I do understand that. From what I understand, his past. However, he was the most successful promoter of all time. And with success, there is always going to be negativity. That's a fact. But when we focus on the negativity and not talk about the man's success and how successful a promoter he is, and the super fights he put on, and the tournaments he put on, and the best fighting the best. Holyfield versus Tyson. You know, there's so many fights that we can talk about where Don King was involved with. And King Vision. Yes, he may have ripped fighters off, but which promoter doesn't rip fighters off? And is it the promoter that ripped him off? What about his management? What about the boxers' management? Like I said, what about the people around the boxers? Boxers, for the most part, are so busy fighting that they really do spend less and less time paying attention to things they should be paying attention to. No, not a lot of street boxers in the world. They want to fight, they want to get paid, they want to go home. That's what it is. I'll leave it to my promoter. Really? I'll leave it to my promoter. Really? And there's the guys that say, you left it to me. Well, you don't care for yourself. I look after myself. And I don't think that's not down to Don King. Don King makes you a lot of money before ripping you off. There we go. Okay. Oh wow. US amateur system is horrendous. It seems that they've just been trying to poach heavyweights from other sports like football, like Brazil. These fighters will be always limited at the highest level. That's a shame, baby Ting. That's a real shame. That's a real shame. That's a real shame. Bob Arum is from the same school as Don King, but you never hear of him like that. Yes. And you know why? Because who's pushing the pen in all these media outlets? Huh? And what do they look like for the most part? And what's the agenda? You put Don King, you put Bob Arum in a room together, but you look at what Don King's achieved. You look at what Bob Arum's achieved. And no matter whatever Bob Arum does, he's still not considered the greatest promoter of all time. When Bob Arum and Don King were in the same room together, Don would always outshine Bob Arum. That's a fact. He would outshine Arum. Arum couldn't stand being in the same room as Don King because Don King could promote. And there's I told you, a lot of fake people in boxing. A lot of fakes in boxing. So, let me put it this way to you. Let me give you a little bit more. In the mind of a racist, in the mind of an individual that has agendas, and the agenda is make one color look like this and another color look like that. If that's the agenda, then right, no matter what happens, this black guy, Don King, no matter what Don King does, now listen, I'm not telling you Don King's a saint. Listen to me here. Whatever Don King does, let's make it negative. He rips his fighters off. He rips his fighters off. And that's in the mind of a privileged individual, in the mind of an individual that doesn't want to see another, whose mind is so limited that they believe, because of their limited way of thinking, that another color, another race, another society should not rise. That's the mentality, right? And then they put it out there into their media outlets, their racist media outlets. And then afterwards, you get people that repeat that crap over and over and over again until it becomes a well-placed lie or some truth to it, but nobody listens to it. Nobody breaks it down until you understand how media works. Like I told you before, and I'll tell you again, you can't trust 95% of the media within boxing. You can't, in the world, but you can't trust 95% of the media within boxing. And I keep telling you all, and you keep not listening to me, but it's okay. You keep getting exposed to you all the time. Keep getting exposed every day. Something new comes out. Why? See, I will stick with truth as much as I can, or as all I can is speak truth. Whether I get 5 views, I get 10 views, or I get 1 million views, I don't care. We're going to stay the same on BWTM, which is staying the same, stay the same, stay the same, stay the same, stay the same. Stay balanced. Give people an opinion. Share information. Bring guests on with world-class experience who've been there, that's seen it, that have done it with a wealth of experience. Bring it to you, and then you make your own decision afterwards. If you want to listen to somebody who hasn't been in the sport of boxing, who's never involved themselves in the boxing, has no intention of involving themselves in boxing, and want to take their spin on things from a line which is basically biased, then fine. But it is what it is, isn't it? We always got the huge fights under Don King. Thank you. How many fighters now left Cyclone for getting ripped off? Boxing media, particularly toxic, so clear. I've told you all, these independents, or the majority of them, are not independent. They are not independent. Explain. Watch is how you know independent. These guys, freelance independents, right? They're only independent until they get somebody that they can depend on. But it calls interdependent. Do you understand? So I'm independent. I'm independent. I'm independent. Oh, hello, Mr. Promoter. Yeah. That's the free seat I've been looking for. Yeah. My name in lights. That's what I'm waiting for. Yeah. Free seats. Travel expenses. Yeah. Flights. Yeah. Get to meet my favourite fighters. Yeah. Okay. And get paid a good wage. Well, we can get rid of that independent. That'll work for you. And that's how it works. That's how it works. So all these people, for the most part, they're flying around. You see them saying they're independents. You know the independents are? The independents are the ones like myself that will set up an online station and speak truth and expose things for what they are. So don't talk to me about Dan Raphael. There you go, right there. See, the fact that you even can use Dan Raphael, you know, just using the word Dan Raphael on this channel should be it calls for me to block your ass and never talk to you again. Can you give me some examples of objective news outlets you follow? It seems like even credible journalists like Kevin Lowell and Brian Campbell are shilling these. They always were. They always were. I'm afraid to say they always were. It's just getting worse now because of obviously COVID and people needing to make more money, so they have to ramp it up even more. First of all, the most credible sources you can get are those people that are constantly either being ignored or being spoken bad about. I think those are the people, like, for example, guys like I think Fight News. I like Fight News. Fight News is pretty good. Fight News is pretty good. I like to use all the old school, like the old school stuff. But then, at the end of the day, it's subjective. What you think is credible. Like, there are some guys that I know, some outlets that I know for a fact are just not credible. They're just not credible. Or they are about sensationalism rather than actually substance. Are you asking the questions that we really need the answers to? Are we being educated when listening to what you're talking about? Are we getting a better knowledge about the fighter, about their careers, about the direction they're going in? Mayweather left Oscar De La Hoya, left him. Now look at what's happened to Bud Crawford now. Exactly. No one talks about that. Ortiz said Ortiz was second best heavyweight in the world and Dave Allen was a huge win. All with a straight face. I can't listen to that guy ever again. Well, racing was in the 90s, 2000s, even now in football, you hear less now. Yes, in the 90s, it was horrendous. It was horrendous. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is when you know. Done. I'm done. That's enough to end the show. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching again. The truth is out there if you choose not to get sucked into the hype. Yeah. You know, but I say, when people talk about being exposed in boxing, do they ever look at the people that are week to week making these punditry, these comments, these outrageous statements that we pay for, even pay on pay-per-view to watch. These boxing articles where they've been sensationally wrong, people still go back to them afterwards. There is a form of, dare I say, mind control within boxing. People have been so brainwashed into thinking that, well, if I need to find out the latest news, I'm going to go here. If I need to know what's the latest thing, what the latest gossip is, I'll go here. But really, take a step back and ask yourself the question: am I actually hearing what I want to hear, or am I hearing the truth? That's the question I ask. And why is it over and over and over again? I keep coming back and saying to you, I told you this about the media. I told you this about this fighter. Well, now it's time for me to cash in, as they say. Which boxing podcasters do you recommend? There we go. Who do I recommend? I like Boxing Squared. I think Boxing Squared is pretty decent. I like to listen to Boxing Squared a lot. I think he's really good. I do like Boxing Squared. There's a few others. I'm gonna pull out a list of people that I listen to. I used to like Big Ragu. That was a man I used to listen to a lot. I like Big Ragu. I like Blood Boxing because he does the stuff about the documentaries and going back in time and give us historical stuff. I like that. I like things where there is absolute fact, there's rock solid fact, where the video evidence is there. They did say it, it's there. I like that. Didn't think that would get me hate. Yeah. Here we go. So you understand this is the same Ruben Guerrero right here. This is the same guy that thought Kuzman was going to do big things and Kawanaki were going to do big things in the heavyweight division. This man, if he's got a Chenko at the end, Naki at the end, this man right here, Ruben Guerrero, this one here, and then when the fighters get beat, he's got a whole heap of excuses for them. This man right here. Just a personal thing. Steve Bunce goes on a bit too much for me. The UK Larry Merchant. Yeah. Steve Bunce that famously said people on YouTube, the Do It for Free Brigade. Not do it because they love the sport. Call it the Do It for Free Brigade. Is what it is, isn't it? I can't even believe he mentioned his name. Oh dear. It's shocking, isn't it? It's still gold. I've got to say that. I think the best one ever for me is Bunce. If you ever seen Steve Bunce and Bernard Hopkins, right there is what boxing media is really about. Right there is a perfect example of what boxing media is about in the UK. Go and look at that interview with Bernard Hopkins and Steve Bunce and the way they treated Bernard Hopkins. Go and watch that. Classic. TVV is a great idea, platform-wise. I call in the show. I just wish they had some credible people running it. Steve Bunce should be cancelled by now. Dinosaurs in boxing. Dinosaurs in boxing. Is what it is. Yeah, go back and watch that Steve Bunce interview. Go back and watch that with Bernard Hopkins. That is British boxing today in 2020. That is British boxing and British boxing media in 2020. The way you treat legends. That's how you treat. That's how they treat legends. Disgusting. Disgusting. And even you look at the face of boxing media in the UK, for the most part, same old, same old. Same people pushing the pens. Same people in the positions of power that they own. Just look at the face of boxing media. The real power movers within boxing media. Look at the faces. Good old network it is.
Moby in EDL. I'm just watching on Vice. That's funny. Feel down. Watch that. LOL. Okay. Right. Let me get out of here now because I've been on a bit too long. Almost 2 hours. This is the longest I've done in a while show. But yeah. Let me know what you all think of this show. Your thoughts, your opinions. And if Muhammad Ali was around today, if Muhammad Ali was on today, I believe he would have been hated even more. Even more he'd have been hating today. I'd love to know what people would be saying about Muhammad Ali today. Because the same people that dislike Wilder, if you dislike Wilder for what he says, God only knows. And take the twerking to one side, because that's the reason why he's not making the money he should be making. And that's why sponsors will turn around and say, see that? See that there? That's the reason why we didn't invest in him. But then you can go down the Joshua route. So yeah, do watch it. Do check it out. You should watch it out. I'll show you what boxing media is about today. Right, I'm out. Join me later on. Mike Tyson's former trainer. Povetkin's former trainer. Stacey McKinney back in the house. He'll be giving me his post-fight thoughts on White versus Povetkin and much more. See you soon.